Chapter 3 Guidelines by Gurudev. It has been my experience that compared to a seeker's keenness to remain in search of a true spiritual guide, the latter is still more keener to find out a deserving devotee. A devotee, sadhak, has to be truly deserving person. Only a person who has refined his thinking, character and attitudes is a true sadhak. He is not required to go in search of a guru. The guide himself appears before him, grasps his hand and shows him the path he has to tread. He lifts up the sadhak in his lap when he staggers and safely takes him across all obstacles. This is exactly what has happened in my own case. Gurudev visited my house uninvited to make me a fit instrument for the execution of his divine assignment and got 24 Gayatri Mahapurusharans performed, which culminated in Purnahuti of Gayatri Yajna of 1000 kunds. He not only introduced to me but also made me intimate with about 1 lakh of persons who perform the nucleus of Gayatri mission and have given me their wholehearted cooperation in the stupendous task of spiritual reawakening of the masses. During our first meeting, Gurudev had directed me to come to the Himalayas 4 times for periods of about 1 year each after completing 24 Mahapurusharans of Gayatri. The first reason for calling me to the Himalayas was to ascertain that my soul did not feel lonely in the wilderness and solitude of nature without the company of living beings and without the requisite living facilities. Secondly, it was to ascertain whether I could establish spiritual identity and intimacy with wild and ferocious animals living there. Thirdly, I was to be introduced to the rishis through whose divine pursuits, tapasya, the Uttarakhand region of Himalayas is so surcharged with spiritual energy that it is called Devatma. These rishis, when they were in their physical bodies, had infused divinity in the environment and had individually played significant and distinct roles in infusing and activating specific qualities of spiritual light and power in the human psyche. Such life-transforming tasks are impossible of accomplishment by solitary human effort without adequate resources, public cooperation and support. Gurudev's silent direction to me was to apply the available spiritual energy placed at my disposal for the simultaneous fulfillment of 3 objectives. 1. To understand how the rishis of old in their embodied forms had utilized the spiritual energies at their disposal for solving the problems of their times by vanquishing the evil forces and by establishing the supremacy of divine way of life. Second, to understand and comprehend the dimensions of the God-assigned task to be accomplished through me as an instrument. And third, to draw appropriate lessons from the successes and failures of those divine warriors, rishis, in their battles against the forces of darkness, and to devise effective strategies against the final assault of these evil forces with the aim of banishing them from the human scene once for all. He told me that the purpose of my pilgrimage to the Himalayas was to spiritually charge and equip myself for this epoch-changing task. Gurudev further said, like us, you have also to perform a very important task through your astral body. By way of rehearsal, you will have to learn how long and in which part of the Himalayas your physical body could stay in fit condition to enable you to devote your wholehearted attention to the spiritual mastery and strength needed for the attainment of the aspired ends. He continued, in temperate climate, the system is not subjected to the rigors of extremes of heat and cold, and all normal facilities for leading a normal, comfortable life are easily available. On the contrary, to live calmly and unperturbed with minimal facilities in the high Himalayan regions with extreme cold and no creature comforts whatever is a challenge and an opportunity to learn the difficult art of living. This itself is sadhana. One is required to master the body like an acrobat, subsist on leaves and edible roots, and learn to live fearlessly with requisite precautions for the safety of life and limb amongst ferocious wild animals. These inconveniences are there so long as there is a physical body. All this comes to an end when one withdraws into the astral body. Then there is no botheration for safety from cold and heat, hunger and thirst, sleep and exhaustion. Physically, a man can walk only up to a limited distance, but a soul in an astral body can instantly reach anywhere and convey its message to the minds of thousands of persons at a time, and thus its capacity to help humanity increases manifold. Illumined souls, therefore, work through their astral bodies. Their sadhanas are also different from those done physically. Physical body has its limitations. Its energy is mostly spent in satisfying physical needs and worrying about weakness, sickness, old age, etc. Its advantage, however, is that direct physical acts on the material plane, mutual communication and physical contacts are possible only through a physical body. When physical body becomes old and decrepit, it has to be cast off and tasks initiated through it remain unfinished. That is why those who are divinely willed to effectively work on the material plane for extended periods of time far beyond the normal human lifespan to guide, inspire and empower the chosen few in the vanguard of humanity's upward and inward march towards Godhead have to withdraw into their astral bodies and act upon this world with far greater force and effect from that realm. Your physical body will continue functioning until it has outlived its utility. You will then have to leave it and enter the astral body. Your sadhana will then be different and the range of effectiveness of your powers extraordinarily far-reaching. You will have contacts with special souls and will accomplish an epoch-changing task. At an appropriate time, you will be introduced to this region of Devatma Himalaya. On this side of Gomukh, saints, great souls live in their physical bodies. You will face several difficulties in this region also. You will have to live in this region for 1 year each time. Besides, you will be required to stay for 4 days each time in the region known as the heart of the Himalayas, which is the spiritual center of humanity. I will remain with you. Your astral body will be molded in the usage of your physical body, and you will know who live there, how they live, and how you will have to live there. By having experience of living in these regions in physical and astral bodies, you will reach a state of consciousness in which rishis remain centered for fulfillment of their specific aims. In brief, this is the purpose of inviting you 4 times to the Himalayas. This will also encompass the spiritual training you have to undergo and the tests you have to pass. Your Purusharam sadhana will not be hampered by these pursuits. This region is inhabited by those living in their astral bodies. Circumstances have considerably changed since the last ice age. Gods, formerly living in this region of the Himalayas, which is known as heaven on earth, now live in ethereal space as the present environment here is not congenial to them. In ancient times, rishis lived from Rishikesh to Gomukh according to their choice and convenience. This region has now become disturbed due to tourists, pilgrims, and professionals. Also, several temples have been built to satisfy people's curiosity relating to ancient history and to enable local people to earn their livelihood. I was told that Madame Blavatsky, founder of Theosophy, was an eminent saint. She was in contact with highly evolved souls living in their astral bodies. She has written in her book that there is a parliament of invisible divine saints in difficult, inaccessible regions of the Himalayas. Illumined residents of this area are also known as invisible helpers. Gurudev said, "It is all true. You will see all this yourself by your divine vision in this region of Himalayas, which is my abode." The Tibetan area was a part and parcel of the Himalayas in those days. Now the boundaries have changed. Yet the statement of Madame Blavatsky is true. Those living on the physical plane cannot see them, but I was assured that I would be able to see them by Gurudev's grace. Gurudev continued, "Keep on waiting for my call. You will be called when it is necessary and when you will be considered fit for test. Do not be overeager on your side. Do not start for the Himalayas of your own accord by way of sheer curiosity. It will all be useless. It is my responsibility after you have surrendered to me." Thereafter, Gurudev disappeared. Wholehearted execution of the prescribed disciplines. In his first meeting, Gurudev had prescribed for me 3 disciplines. 24 Gayatri Mahapurushcharans had to be performed for 24 years strictly in accordance with the prescribed rules in front of Grit lamp to be kept lighted uninterruptedly. The second important discipline to be undergone was of writing books for promoting the enlightened good of the masses. This was also essential for my own self-growth and self-education. This needed intense and extensive study and concentration. Side by side, public contacts had to be established to develop my organizing skills. The third important responsibility was to play the role of a voluntary freedom fighter in India's struggle for independence. As a matter of fact, these programs were not complementary to each other, but none of these became an obstacle in the progress of my sadhana and study, although in between I had to visit Himalayas twice. The credit for this goes to my divine guide who had taken full control of the reins of my life and had assured constant protection. I was enjoined by Gurudev to have the outlook of a rishi. I was also told that although I was related to my family, I should remain quite detached from it. I should listen to everybody, but should do what I considered appropriate, as it would be well nigh impossible for me to reach the goal if attention is paid to their advice. Spiritual path, Shreya, and material path, Preya, are diametrically opposite to each other, and only one of them can be followed. If the world was pleased with someone, his inmost self will not be happy with him. If the inner soul is satisfied, the displeasure of the worldly people will have to be suffered. This has generally happened in the lives of all true seekers of truth. It is very, very rare that the pursuit of higher ideals has been approved by relatives. More often than not, the human soul had to surrender before the worldly people, high ideals had to be given up, and the old soul-suffocating routine had to be carried on. I faced this difficulty the very first day. With the starting of the series of Purushcharans, I started taking the prescribed food and leading the life of an ascetic tapasvi. This created havoc. People started discussing me in their own way in sweet and sour words. The gist of their advice was that no steps should be taken to disturb the ordinary routinized way by which people earned their livelihood. Although our ancestral property was so large that 3 generations could have easily been fed and maintained sitting idle, it was stressed that it should all be kept intact for future. The family should be maintained on fresh earnings through the ancestral profession of priesthood. How could the arguments of these people be rebutted? Ultimately, I made one of the 3 gurus of Gandhiji as my guru. That is, I kept silent and felt relieved. I simply said that what I was doing was in response to divine inspiration and thus restored a semblance of peace. I started acting upon my solemnly taken pledge in such a manner as if I had not to take advice from and answer to anybody. On a back look now, I see that if such firmness had not been shown, my life would have been rocked by violent jerks and capsized, and I would have missed that opportunity by which, with the help of sadhana, I have been able to do good to myself as well as to the masses. Relationship with God could not have been established with anything less than purity of heart and clarity and brilliance of head. I was subjected to a second test in my childhood when the non-cooperation movement of the Indian National Congress started. Gandhiji launched the Satyagraha movement, called upon true patriots to come out from the smugness of their homes, face the bullets and go to jail. I heard the inner voice that it was a historical movement which must not be missed. I got my name enrolled in the corps of Satyagrahis of that region. I had to leave my house and go to the front to offer salt satyagraha. The officials of the government and their propagandists had spread rumors that there would be firing and people would be sentenced to long imprisonments, including transportation for life, with a view to dissuading them from taking part in this movement. All my friends, neighbors, family members, relatives came to impress upon me that what I was contemplating to do was a suicidal act. The matter got further aggravated and some relatives threatened to go on fast and commit suicide. My mother, who was my guardian, was tutored to get my name struck off as a co-inheritor along with my brothers of valuable ancestral property and get the names of other brothers entered in my place. My brothers said that none of them would have any relation with me and I would not be allowed entry in the house. I was threatened to be got kidnapped and compelled to live in the camps of dacoits. I listened to all these threats calmly. The question before me was, what should be given precedence? Pressure of the family or the need of the times? I made my soul and God as witnesses and decided to act according to the still small voice from within. In this context, the persecution of Prahlad appeared before my eyes. I also recalled the story of Dhruv, the determination of Parvati and the life stories of innumerable great men, warriors, saints, reformists and martyrs. None of the family members and relatives of these great personages had supported them. They remained firmly committed to the call of duty on the strength of their own spiritual discernment. I, therefore, became indifferent to what worldly friends, neighbors, and relatives said or did. If higher ideals are to be pursued, one has to resolutely struggle against greed and cravings. Despite stiff opposition, I stealthily reached the place which was indicated, launched satyagraha, and courted arrest. My life, its legacy and message. हमारी वसीयत और विरासत. Author Sri Ram Sharma Acharya.
If you found this video helpful, then please like, comment and share it, and subscribe to our YouTube channel Rishi Chintan. Please press the bell icon so that you will receive notifications of our upcoming videos. Thank you.